Hi, I'm Bridget Price.
And I'm Lauren Kemp.
And this is Entrepreneurs in Progress. We're back for season 2. Yay! When we first started our podcast, we weren't sure if we were going to record every week or if we wanted to take a break and break our content over a period of seasons or number of seasons. As you can see, we decided on the latter, and with good reason. Sometimes you just need a break. We love podcasting, and we didn't want to get burnt out, a feeling we all know too well. So today, we'll be discussing burnout as entrepreneurs and sticking around for the long game. Let's get started. So we know that burnout is very real. It's a real problem. And we all feel it in our lives and through work, family, everything. But I feel like burnout with entrepreneurs is taking it up a notch. Why do you think burnout is such a significant problem that entrepreneurs face?
Yeah, I think it's because there's the lack of boundaries. So with work-life balance and also that need to sprint constantly. And so I think entrepreneurs feel like they have to be constantly sprinting and pushing and working hard in order for their business to succeed. And I would challenge that idea that you need to go hard all the time because, you know, it leads to higher stress, which means more susceptibility to illness. And that obviously will decrease your productivity. So I think that with entrepreneurs, I think they also like to take on too much. So I don't know about you, but sometimes I'll take on too many like projects or work or try to have a social life on top of that and work out and eat healthy and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Eventually something's got to give. But that was a really long way of saying I think entrepreneurs ultimately it comes down to not having those boundaries.
Yeah, I was totally on board, obviously, from the jump with us starting this podcast and super excited. And I loved how fast we got moving. And I loved recording every week. I'm like, this is something I look forward to every weekend. And I know we talked about taking breaks for vacation or summer was coming up, so we wanted to take a step back. But it wasn't until we actually took the break did I realize how necessary it was even to take that extended period of time off. I thought maybe we'd take a couple of weeks off, but we essentially took off about 2 months. And I think it allowed us to really think about how we wanted to go about season 2 and future seasons of our podcast, how we wanted to record. We're recording a bit differently this time around to avoid burnout carrying over. So I believe you're right. I think that a lot of entrepreneurs tend to take on more because they're excited. They have that hunger for doing things. They want to accomplish a specific goal. And I think we were both the same way. So I'm glad that we were able to wrap up season 1, essentially, which at the time we didn't even consider it season 1 because we were going to keep rolling. But I loved how we chunked it out over 7 episodes and then another 7 episodes. And now we're in season 2. And now we understand what our time limitations are and how we want to go about operating the podcast in a way that makes most sense for us, given everything that we have on our plates.
And I think it's important to have that break to take a step back, because if we're just rolling along every week, and if you're doing that with your business as well, if you're just continuing on as you always have been, you miss the opportunity to really take a step back and do more strategic, high level work. Like we wrapped up our season and then we're like, okay, what do we want to do next season differently? What are some other ideas and new things that we can try? And I think that having that ability, whether it's a podcast or your business, to just zoom out, have a high level view of what you're doing. You learn things along the way too. Just because what you think something's going to be like right now, a few months down the road, things can change. They usually do.
Yeah.
You learn things along the way, and then you need to do that reset and that strategy.
Yeah. It's funny because sometimes you can't see the forest from the trees. So when you're in the weeds or in the thick of it, into the thick of it, into the thick of it.
Oh, no.
I have to throw in that.
No.
That is the most music anyone is going to get out of me. I'm not a singer or anything of the sort. That came out. But
that's amazing.
Anyway, you are just moving along and you're trying to get out of the weeds. It's hard to really tell yourself that I need a break, because you're trying to get from one place to the next. And sometimes entrepreneurs are so myopic that we're like, no, I'm not stopping until I get to this point. I don't care how tired I am. I don't care what I've sacrificed. I don't care if I'm on my fifth cup of coffee and it's like before noon. I think that entrepreneurs have to have that check-in with themselves and really, like you said, reset and understand that resetting can be one of the better things you can do for your business. A lot of times entrepreneurs are forced to reset, like something crumbles or something goes haywire and they literally crash physically. They're exhausted. They can't do anything else and they get sick or whatever the case may be, where they're forced to push that hard reset button. And I think that entrepreneurs, we all need to do a better job of hitting that reset button on our own and not having external factors influence us so bad. But it's real. And I think that we are so focused on attaining or achieving our success that we'll do it by any means necessary. If it compromises our health, if it compromises our relationships, being stretched too thin, it's really tough.
And that gets in the way of your success too. If your health is declining, if your relationships and other areas of your life are on the decline because you're so focused on your business, that's going to affect your business. Like these other areas will start to affect each other. So I think that entrepreneurs really need to challenge that belief that they have to essentially sprint and work, extremely hard, long hours. There's some overlap with the hustle and grind culture there. But challenge that belief that you need to do that in order to succeed. Now, some people will disagree. There are definitely people out there like, nope, you got to hustle, you got to grind, you got to work like crazy for 3 years straight, like to the detriment of everything around you. And I would like to say, like, maybe you need that, but personally, I think you don't. And I think, as I mentioned before, you get a diminishing return on your efforts if you're burnt out and it starts to affect other areas of your life.
Do you think there's like a personality trait that a lot of entrepreneurs carry that makes them more susceptible to burnout? Or is it the culture of being an entrepreneur?
I think some of it could be culture, some of it could be personality, but I think a lot of it is that belief that in order to succeed, and like you care about your business, you want to succeed. I think it's that belief that you need to do all these things to succeed. And I think that's why entrepreneurs do it, is because they're like, it's already hard enough as it is. You want more than anything for your business to succeed. And that's I think it fuels it's like fear as well. That belief that if you're not doing everything you possibly can and sacrificing all your weekends and health and blah, 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 then like you didn't do enough or you're not going to succeed.
Yeah, I think it's a mix. I do think there's a nature versus nurture play here, because I just vividly recall corporate jobs. You have those 9-to-5ers. Like they're like, I'm coming in at 9 and I am leaving at 5. I'm not staying later. I'm not doing more than what's asked.
Yeah.
And they have set very clear boundaries around their time. Now, a lot of people might look at that and then say, oh, they don't want to attain a certain level of success, or they're okay with kind of flying under the radar. But a lot of times I respected those people who are able to set those clear boundaries, because sometimes I'd be working into the wee hours and like feeling taken advantage of, or feeling like I'm not being paid enough to compromise, literally waking up, working, going to sleep, and doing it again the next day. I used to envy those people who could really clearly set those boundaries. And I think we have been taught for so long to go the extra mile, to push and push, to take on a little bit more, to be a team player, all of these things. And sometimes you're left feeling, for what? As it pertains to entrepreneurs, I do believe, I've always felt personally that I was in a race against time, right? So I've wanted to accomplish a certain amount of things before a certain age. I had family to take care of. I needed to accomplish things by some subjective timeline I created in my head. And a lot of people don't know that. They just see me going or trying all of these things, putting my hands in all of these pots, but I'm trying to figure out how I can get there as quickly as possible. And that definitely has led to me just being burnt out, tired, uninspired, and quite honestly, not giving it 100%. It's taken me this last year or so to really realize how hard I was going. I was compromising my productivity. Like, I was not giving my full self, even though I thought I was.
Yeah. I think that's such an interesting concept you bring up about time. You know, with a normal job, you have those boundaries of 9 to 5. And now some people obviously don't stick to them all the time, but it's a lot more clear. It's 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, the vast majority of corporate jobs. With entrepreneurship, you don't have necessarily that same expectation or constraints whenever the fuck you want to work.
When you can. A lot of entrepreneurs, let's be clear, are working full time already. And so they're already working 9 to 5, and then they got to work 5 to 9 or 5 to 12.
So there isn't the standard expectation for entrepreneurs like, oh, I need to work this many hours. It's no, you work as many hours as you want and as it takes to be successful. So I think that was the one thing you mentioned about time. And then the subjective timelines. So that really hit me because I was like, oh yeah, I'm an impatient person. Like, I want to get there as fast as possible. And so I think entrepreneurs feel that too. They're like, oh, I want to get to the fun, successful part of the business as soon as possible. And that's how you end up sprinting and eventually burning out.
Yeah. And it doesn't help when we're in this kind of social media culture where you're seeing these quote unquote overnight successes, you're reading about them, and you feel like, crap, I'm falling behind. I need to pick it up a bit. And I think that we are in a place where we do not appreciate delayed gratification. Immediate.
Who does?
I don't think anyone really does. Like, I want to know my hard work is paying off right now. I need to know. So
or that it's going to pay off at all, you know?
Yeah. That's why I feel like the cleaning business worked so well for me. When we started, I was so just detached from it. Like, we'll see how this goes and that type of thing. And look, it worked. And it's not to say that you can't have your hopes up about a business or an idea or your company. It's just sometimes as entrepreneurs, we're trying to sprint and move so quickly to get to that finish line that we don't realize that finish line is really far away. And sometimes you just have to know how to pace yourself to sustain yourself. Because if you don't, you're gonna tap out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. In line with the subjective timeline, I also think that I don't want this to come off ageist, but I do think younger entrepreneurs and older entrepreneurs are different. I think younger entrepreneurs have limited experience, just life experience in general. And so we have rose-colored glasses, I'm old as hell. They have rose-colored glasses about the process. And then when you're older, you're more realistic about how long it might take you to reach a certain milestone or goal. And you just accept it and you work around it. Now, when I think about new business ideas or ventures, I don't need it to pop off in 2 weeks. Like, I'm going to give it the time that it needs to grow versus, okay, I'm going to put on all this work at the beginning and then I want to be rich like within 12 months. I have a better understanding. That's not how it always works. And I'm okay with that. And it allows me to really flesh out ideas or plans or concepts better than I did when I was younger.
Yeah. And I think it's not to say that you can't have those quick successes. Like, obviously they happen.
Yeah.
But I think that for the vast majority of people, it's better to have that long-term view of your business so you don't get burnt out. There are some people who are able to do it like what feels like almost instantly, but then we don't always know how long it was in the planning beforehand or what they had done previously. But there are some instances where a business will take off. But I think when we're talking and recommending this, like, I think the first thing also is we're not looking to sell our businesses. Like, we're not building something to sell it as soon as possible. So that's a little different when people are trying that strategy. Yeah, their goal is to build it up as fast as possible to get rid of it. Whereas we're trying to build something that will be
passive
a long-term
income
investment. Yeah,
exactly.
So,
and that's to say also, when we talk about burnout with entrepreneurs, I think there's a misconception. I think that a lot of people who aren't entrepreneurs just think we're living this flexible lifestyle and part of that's true. Like, we dictate our time. Yes. But I think, Lauren, you can attest to this. We work every fucking day. That's not a good thing all the time, but whether it's an hour here, a few hours there, on the weekends, whatever, we're working every day. And even when we're not actively working, we're thinking, and all of that takes a lot of mental energy, and that's exhausting. I mean, there was at one point in time, I thought Marcus was taking me out just to take me out on a date, and we were just going to decompress, and he's bringing up the damn business. I'm like, okay, well, I need a minute. Like, please, let's talk about anything else. And that's rough sometimes when you're working with a significant other or your spouse, because they might have different ideas about date night.
Yeah.
But we're always working. And I think that sometimes it's hard to conceptualize entrepreneurs feeling burnt out, especially in this culture where a lot of entrepreneurs are showcasing their entrepreneurship and they're glamorizing it, and it's not always gold and sparkly and money. It's a lot of stressful nights. And, yeah.
I think what's hard for entrepreneurs as well is even recognizing that they're starting to get burnt out, because you get into the routine, you get into the grind, things are moving along, and sometimes it's just hard to tell that you even need a break because you're just so focused. How can you tell when you're starting to feel burnt out?
I have a couple of tells now that I didn't really realize. I think Marcus realized them sooner than I did, of course. But for me, I get very irritable. I get cranky. I'm very short-tempered, and usually I'm very patient. But when I'm hitting my wall, everything annoys me. I'm very agitated at that point. Sometimes I feel like a little depressed. I feel a little downtrodden from time to time. So I also start feeling maybe slightly uninspired. I start questioning what I'm doing all of this for. So there's a couple of ways knowing that I'm burnt out. Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, it's somewhat similar. So I noticed that I lose some motivation. I feel like you just lose that like spark or magic or that happiness that you feel working on your business. Cause usually like we love working on the business. Like this, like as entrepreneurs, like it's fun.
Right.
This podcast is a lot of fun. And so when we were nearing the end of season 1, when I was editing the last few episodes and trying to come up with clips and stuff, I just like, my heart was not as in it. And I was like, this feels like a sign, because I love doing this with you. I love talking. I love the editing. And so that was like a sign to me that I was like, you know what? I think I'm running out of gas. I think I just need a break, because we've been doing it for 3 months?
Yeah.
Which is,
we went like 15 weeks, and then we went 3-month stretch, and that was from planning, production, everything. That was pretty fast.
Yeah. And so I think too, I realized Brian and I hadn't taken a break or a vacation in a while. And sometimes it's nice just to switch up your routine and be in a different environment, city, whatnot. And then you appreciate your home that much more, as I found out. But yeah, I think that your mood does get more kind of like negative. You do lose some of that energy. And I know that motivation will go up and down. That's just part of running a business for a long period of time. There's some days when you'll be really motivated, and there's some days where you're not. But I feel like it's like a different feeling from being not motivated but still working to like feeling drained. And yeah, I guess drained and empty are the words that come to my mind. That feeling where it's just, okay, something seems off for longer than it should.
Yeah, there's a rule similar to like when you're sick. Like by the time you're feeling the symptoms of being sick, you've already been infected a few days prior. And I think when you're burnt out or starting to feel like you're hitting that wall, you've already been burned out for quite some time. And it's really important to know or listen to your body or listen to those cues before you really hit that wall. Because it's hard to bounce back off of that wall once you've hit it. You can be down for a really long time. And so I am trying to work through recognizing when I'm feeling burnt out and then addressing it as it comes on. It sounds like you've figured out taking a step back, maybe going on vacation. What other ways do you remedy feeling the symptoms of being burnt out?
I know for Brian, sometimes it's doing something else that's creative, like having a different outlet. So I like to bake. I'll bake treats and try to spend a little like time with friends and family or indie or be out in nature. It's hard when you're in Arizona in the summer to do that.
Yeah.
I think it's just that making sure you're taking care of yourself. And I think it really is just taking a break. So you're not thinking about it constantly. I found that to be helpful. It is hard for me to recognize too, because is it burnout or am I just unmotivated and stuff like that? And I think it's easier. I think you mentioned Marcus noticed it before you did. There are times where I've, said to Brian, hey, I'm worried about you. You've been working really long hours for many weeks now, and I can see it affecting your mood and health and well-being. Like, I'm worried about you getting burned out. So it can be something where you have someone help you recognize that as well. Like, it could just be anyone saying like, hey, I noticed you've been working really hard for really long and it seems to be very stressful for a long period of time. Maybe you need to take a break. And I think entrepreneurs are also not always receptive to that.
Yeah.
So even if you do have that,
Gotta squeeze out a little bit more work.
I think you got to prioritize it too, because it's recognizing that burnout and working that hard for so long, you're not going to be at your best. Like, you're not going to be your most productive, come up with your best ideas. You're not going to do your best work. So
no,
you need that break.
Yeah, I think you're right about someone else sometimes being able to see it before you do. Marcus sees it before I do. I see his signs of burnout before he does. And really maybe having someone who can hold you accountable to that and taking that break. It's getting easier for me now that I'm older to just be like, okay, I need to detach myself. But it's hard at the same time as an entrepreneur to take your mind completely off the business. Like, it just is always there in the back of your mind. And it's really tough just to shut that part of the brain off. And I think as an entrepreneur, one thing that I can suggest, or one thing that has helped for me and Marcus to take some time off or enjoy vacation or see family, is having a lot of systems and processes in place or some automations in place where the business can run autonomously and it'll be fine. In the cleaning business, because we work in a scheduled type of way, I can decide, okay, maybe this week I'm going to reduce our time slots, or I'm going to reduce how many cleanings we handle this week, so it can just be very predictable and easygoing and I can relax. And I think we have to take stock of where we are in the business and implement those features or those tactics to allow yourself to take time away if you think you can't turn your brain off. Because 9 times out of 10, the shit can wait. I know it's hard to tell ourselves that, but it will be there the next day. We are creating these self-made timelines, and I think we just have to be better about making time for our mental health and being able to hit the refresh button.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is it's a mindset shift. It's rejecting the idea that you need to burn yourself out to be successful, or for society to deem you not lazy, or all these things that we tell ourselves. It's a complete mindset shift to, you know what, I'm going to work smarter, not harder. I'm going to put systems in place. I'm going to automate. I'm going to delegate. I'm going to do as much of that as I can. So you can...
You're flowing for a minute there. Everything was rhyming, so...
Bars.
Oh, man.
But yeah.
Sorry. I'm on one this one.
And not just the work smarter, not harder mind shift, but the long game mind shift. And I think that's something that we should go into more detail, because if you view this business of yours as a long game, then taking a day off for your mental health or taking a vacation, it's a blip. It's such a small, insignificant amount of time. Or if you push something off until tomorrow, it's like, in the long run, of like over the course of this business's life, it's not going to matter. It will be there for you tomorrow. It's going to be okay.
I think that's a great point. It sounds to me that unfortunately sometimes burnout is a result of not being able to properly prioritize your to-do list. There is a mindset shift. I think that we've been taught for so long, the harder you work, the harder you go, the longer you go, the more success you're going to have. You're going to outpace everybody if you bust your ass. And there's never any discussion around the balance to that. It's like push, but then what do you do if you push yourself to the brink? And I think we are as a generation, we are changing that conversation, and we are focusing a lot more on finding that real healthy work-life balance and understanding that, yes, it will be there tomorrow. It can wait. Your mental health cannot. And again, how effective are you if you are unmotivated, uninspired, depressed? You're not 100%. It's this idea, this is that falling into that trap of just mindlessly working, thinking you're doing more than if you were just to sit your ass down somewhere and chill for a second. And so it's this, sometimes as entrepreneurs, we fall into that 9-to-5 trap, right? We're like, I don't need 8 hours to do my job. I can do it in 6, but you want someone there just to feel like, oh, you're getting the most out of them when you're probably not. And we fall into that trap. We're constantly doing something. We're moving the needle a little bit, and all we're doing is really moving the needle on us, on how fast we already get burnt out.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned it before, you don't get that reset. You don't get to take a step back, look at your strategy, because maybe you need to adjust your strategy, and that'll have a bigger impact versus doing the same work over and over again without really taking a bird's eye view of your business. And I think I had mentioned this in season 1, but there are times where you're going to have to work your ass off. I'm not saying that you should never work hard or bust your ass or anything like that. There will be times where that's going to happen. And with burnout, it's realizing when you've gone too hard for too long and it starts to affect other areas of your business. But I think it's so hard with our culture of everyone being connected and on. You're lazy if you don't do that. Oh, you're just not working hard enough. Value isn't created based on the number of hours you put in.
I mentioned that when we were planning or discussing this conversation. It's not a popular opinion, but sometimes burnout is necessary. That's how you learn. When you get to that point,
So it's a bad lesson.
but it's a necessary lesson when you realize, oh my gosh, I can't do this to myself again, or I can't do that again, or I'm not going to do that again. But you have to burn out because when you do hit that wall and life comes at you fast, you will have to breathe a little bit. And I think sometimes when you're in your most burnt out space, it does allow you to do or have a lot of introspection. You can reflect on some things. You can strategize, as you discussed. You can really think of things from a different perspective. And sometimes it's because you're fatigued and you're like, I don't want to feel like this anymore. So what changes do I have to make in order to operate differently that you might have not have thought about if you were still going? We're not the Energizer Bunny here.
That's so funny. It makes me think of, this time when I was a junior in college and finals are coming up, and I used to be a super procrastinator. Like, I would do everything last minute. It was just how I operated, how I rolled. And then my junior year in college, I had 7 finals, and most of them were like back to back.
Oh,
like I had 3 in a day, back to back, and another like 2 back to back, and then maybe 1 more on another day. But like, I had put off studying, and then I didn't die, but I was just like, oh my God, this was horrible. I crammed, I passed, but I was like, that's like my come to Jesus moment. I can't live like this. I can't do this again. And then I went from like that to being like type A.
Oh man.
Like, I don't procrastinate. I always have like, that could be the anxiety too, where I just have that always internal sense of urgency. I'm never doing that again to myself. So
dude,
I feel like that is similar to that hard lesson learned.
Yeah, I used to cram all the time, and I used to be so dope at it. And then my brain literally said, bitch, not anymore. I'm tired. I'm not remembering a damn thing at all. You're not cramming shit down. I'm like, so I can't even cram my husband's credit card number. I'm like, wait, what is it? I can't remember shit. He's, oh my God, who are you? You used to remember numbers like this. I'm like, I don't have the time. I don't want to dig into my
the mental capacity. Like,
yeah, I don't want to think of any clever ways to remember this stuff. Like, I just give me the damn number. Like, I can't, and I can't even remember my own credit card numbers. Like, I couldn't. I have no interest in learning them either. So yeah, I can't. Even thinking about cramming just makes me tired. So yeah,
but that's to say is like, I don't want people to learn burnout via that way. Like, that sucks.
Yeah.
You don't want to have to learn burnout by losing relationships or by your health deteriorating or stuff like that. But sometimes it happens in order for you to make a meaningful change.
Yeah, I found that with dealing with burnout, sometimes introducing a new routine helps. And again, sometimes you're forced to introduce that new routine. If you're burnt out and you're tired and you're not even working, maybe you're like what Brian does. He finds a way to be creative again, or maybe you're going back and watching movies that have been released that you haven't even caught up on, or you're reading again, or whatever it might look like for you. You're introducing something to break up that really crazy work schedule that a lot of entrepreneurs encounter. Most recently, last year, I've gotten back into reading. It makes me really sad to think about as a child and in my adolescent how much I loved reading. And then I lost touch with that as I was working on my career or my professions. And I'm like, oh my God, how did I ever deviate from reading? Because it brings me so much joy. But now I found it and I'm like, okay, I'm not losing that again. So that's been helpful. I've recently started like working out, and that's been helping. And I think, like you said before, seeing friends or seeing family or just introducing things back into your routine that you've isolated yourself from, all for the love of business, I think is super important.
Yeah, I think changing your scenery too. So like we work from home, we have our set offices and stuff. Sometimes it's nice just going to a coffee shop, getting a cup of coffee, doing some writing or working on something else, working on something that's exciting and inspiring to you. Like for me, sometimes I used to play music, so it would be learning a new song on guitar. But I think it's thinking about those things that, like you said, like reading used to bring you joy, and it's identifying what are these things that bring me joy that I haven't been doing lately? What can I revisit that I know makes me happy? For me,
absolutely. And I feel like I have good old wisdom on my side now. I feel more confident in who I am. And so it's a lot easier to make these, I guess, in my 20s, I would consider them concessions. But now I'm like, I don't have anything really left to prove to anybody. So anything that's left to prove is for me. And I'm going to make sure I pace myself so this is sustainable.
We old as hell.
You're younger than me, boo. I'm tired. I'm old and tired. But yeah, I think also with a new routine, I think it's also a great idea to introduce a new routine in your business too. Because sometimes your business can feel stagnant and you feel like you're doing the same thing over and over again. But maybe you can roll out a new feature. Maybe you can do something exciting like increase prices, because that's always fun. It's nerve-wracking. But no, just things like that to evolve the business that will help break up what you're doing in your day-to-day. Maybe even auditing what your daily tasks are and like asking yourself, can I offload this to anyone else and start thinking about doing something new in my business or taking a step back? And I think that's a really great way to avoid burnout too, because I think sometimes burnout happens when we're working on the same problem or same issue like nonstop. And for some companies that's revenue growth or scalability or hiring or whatever. We could be working on this one task for so long that we're super exhausted.
Yeah, I think you could have that feeling of being stuck working in your business. I was listening to a podcast with Brian recently, and one of the ideas proposed was like, you don't want to work in your business, you want to work on your business. And so ever since we heard that, we're like, okay, like we're identifying what things suck up Brian's time. So we need to shift our strategy on how can we be working on the business and doing all these different creative things instead of feeling like we're stuck in the business, which you can't scale if you're stuck in the business as well. Sometimes different ideas can help shift your strategy and perspective. So I want to ask, did you and Marcus always, like when you're starting a business, do you always view it as a long-term play, or is that something that's evolved with more experience and time and patience?
Yeah, let me rephrase that. I don't think we've ever got past the wanting to get rich in 2 weeks part. But
we all still want that.
Once we've decided or accepted that probably isn't going to happen, but still am optimistic and hopeful for that to happen one day, we have always, I think, planned for the long term. Now, to be transparent, I've made this statement before. With Made Easy, I always looked at it as a short-term play, like, where's our exit strategy? Who are we going to sell this to? But now that I see the growth of the business and understanding Marcus's goals for the business, I'm like, okay, this is definitely more of a long-term play. And I haven't had or started or worked in any of our businesses where it was immediately short-term play, get in, get out type of thing. So it's interesting that you pose that question, because I think I know where you're going with this. We're burning ourselves out for no reason. I mean, I wouldn't say no reason. Like, we have to live, you know what I mean? You want to make money, you want to be profitable and all of that. But if we are going to play this for a while, why are we working ourselves into the ground so quickly and early on? So for us, it's always been a long-term play, but it's funny because we have those short-term goals of making money and living and sustaining ourselves, that long-term play sometimes gets lost in the shuffle. Because you're trying to freaking survive.
I think, eventually we'll get to where it's less survival and more thriving. I wouldn't say coasting. I don't know if coasting is ever a thing. But I think that the long-term play helps put things in perspective so you don't burn out. I also think it helps with, at least for me and Brian, we were talking about it, staying like invested in the business. Because for me, it's so hard if I am trying to do something that I don't see as something that's going to really benefit me long term, or that I even want to do long term. I find it really hard to find the motivation to do it.
This is an interesting conversation, because I understand what you're saying, and I'm curious, with you not feeling motivated to learn that consultant position or role within Rodev, do you feel like you know every bit and part of your business? Do you feel confident in like understanding the business needs and figuring out strategy and operations and things like that?
So that's part of the problem. So my answer is no. So if I'm trying to come up with something for operations, like part of it is I just need to sit down with Brian and figure out, okay, I really need to understand the process of designing solutions for like Sales Cloud, for example, because with Pardot, we have it down. With Sales Cloud, we have not quite automated it as much. So in order for me to help, I need to understand the process more. And I don't think that's necessarily, I need to understand the software more. I think that comes more from like working with Brian on that. So yeah, like I think, would it help? Yes, absolutely. If I knew how to design Sales Cloud solutions, then I wouldn't need to grab Brian for his time and go through that with him. So
yeah, I only asked.
I know it could help.
Yeah, I only asked that because I feel like we have a similar problem with Make Made Easy. It's funny because Marks and I have our own things that we focus on. I'm more right now operations and making sure everything's running smoothly. And he is more overall business strategy, and he's helping me with some of the operational pieces. But sometimes it feels like we are operating on two different islands. And because he started the business, he obviously has a larger perspective on all the ins and outs, what it takes in terms of the proper communication that we need to have to our cleaning teams, what we're looking for, and then even how to continue to grow the business. I come from it sometimes from I'm in the weeds. This is what I see. These are the problems that are coming up. And sometimes I don't want to say butt heads, but we have small disagreements on priorities because we're coming from two different places. And I don't necessarily feel like I don't need to know the ins and outs. In fact, that's a lot of the conversation that we do have is how we need to have a workshop, or we need to go away and literally sit down and talk about all the ins and outs. Because again, even last year, it was a surprise to me when I found out he wanted to have multiple locations. I'm like, oh, I thought we were going to just own Phoenix and that'll be it. And then we'll go and plan other things. I think that's an important conversation with entrepreneurs who are working with others or partnering with others and understanding kind of the totality of what it takes to run the business and deciding how much of an understanding are you going to have, and is it necessary for you to have all of that training or understanding of the business in order to do your part.
Yeah.
And
we're still figuring that out.
Yeah, it's fair because sometimes there's so much to do that you're not going to know everything. And that's why you hire certain people with certain specialties or skills. That's why you are handling the departments or responsibilities that you're handling for Rodev, because that means Brian can focus on the design aspects and the consultancy, and you don't have to do that. And it's just an interesting conversation because I think sometimes I feel the pressure of needing to know it all. So I feel like I have to know everything. And part of that is maybe a control thing, right? Like maybe sometimes I feel like I need to talk my husband off of a ledge. So if I have a better understanding of what he's talking about, I can use the information that I already know that he knows and try to redirect him. But yeah, I definitely feel that pressure of trying to know it all for the sake of our business and so we can properly grow.
I think the problem that you run into with that is you can't be an expert in everything. And I think, I don't know, it's like I said, we're trying to figure out how much do we need to know in what areas and what are we going to focus on? Because no CEO or C-suite, like they don't know everything about the best practices within other departments. Like a CMO is not going to know the same thing as a COO, right? To the depth and expertise. You may have an understanding and you need to know just enough to be effective and work together. But I don't know. Like I said, I don't really have a good answer for this line of thought because we're still trying to figure it out ourselves.
I wonder if that ties into one party or both parties ultimately feeling burnt out. Could they be supported in a way that maybe they're not effectively communicating, that type of thing. So it's just interesting because, quite frankly, like I said, we're experiencing it on our end too, and we don't know exactly what that looks like. So it's just always enlightening to hear another person going through the same thing.
Yeah, I think too, if you're at the point where your partner is, I need you to learn this or do this, or like I'm drowning or something, I think, because Brian and I have had that a couple times where we've both felt at different points in our either careers or in the business where it's like, hey, I'm drowning, I need you to do more. Sometimes that's an unfair ask, and sometimes you need to change your strategy. You're burnt out. Like, instead of doing more, take a break, take a step back. And it's gone both ways with me and Brian. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's just a thing that we're gonna maybe have more thoughts on later as we progress through our business and figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you feel with all of your businesses there's been a long-term strategy at play, or trying to get in, get out?
I think for us it's always been long-term. I don't know if that's because we've been forced to have more patience. I always definitely want to get there as fast as possible, be successful, and have it blow up within 2 weeks, yada, yada. But I feel in my age that it's okay, I'm going to have a little bit more patience. This is going to take a little longer. I think one of the big things that kind of helped with my mentality of that is, so we have our YouTube channel for Rotive, and we haven't put in a ton of like strategy or effort behind it, but there's a little bit. And, we posted videos last year. It's like a little bit of marketing and stuff. And then a year later, I'm looking at some of the analytics and I'm like, holy crap, we have over 1,000 views on this one video. Like, why? And you just see that it's like that exponential curve where we were just putting them out there, and then now they're gaining more traction. The algorithm hath smiled down upon us.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
And that made me realize, oh yeah, like content's a long game. Like our business is a long game, and all the work you put in up front can pay off like tenfold a year, 2 years, 3 years from now. I think I was reading like if YouTube, I think you need 1,000 subscribers to be able to monetize your channel and run ads.
Yeah.
And we're at like 300 right now, but last year we ended with 100, and we're halfway through this year, and it's already seeing that growth. And we're not going to get to 1,000 this year, probably, who knows, but like maybe in a couple more years we'll hit that mark and be able to get money from ads, and that just adds on to the business. And that's how I view things now. It's like, okay, like it's going to take a while sometimes. I realize you have only so much bandwidth. You have only so much mental capacity. Yeah. And you also got to figure out what's worth it. Like for me and Brian, we want to enjoy life now too. We're planning for the future, but we don't want to do it at the expense of our present.
Yeah. It's funny because when I think about all of the times I've talked about like my growth or the shit I've gone through, whether it's through career or personal or whatever, it's those hard times that really stick out, right? That are the funny stories. Like, oh man, you ain't gonna believe this shit. So I think not only obviously do those times build character, but I think it seems crazy to think that you have to enjoy the journey while you're on it, like this crazy roller coaster ride that we're on, because when we finally do get to our yacht party, whatever that might look like, we can look back on this and be like, man, remember when we were joking about making payroll for our staff, or remember when this happened or whatever, and we can look back on that and really look at how far we've grown and how far we've come. And I really think those are the experiences that make up entrepreneurship. As much as we are pointed towards that success, that is not really what makes up this experience. And that's, I think, one of the reasons we're even doing this podcast, is highlighting everything that goes on in between our moderate successes or our failures or shortcomings or whatever. It's really about this overall journey that we're on. I think if you're an entrepreneur, definitely plan for the long term, even if you are in the business of quickly building up businesses to sell it. Obviously, that's like flipping houses, right? Like, you still have some strategy around that in terms of how long you plan to be in it and do it. And so I think if we as entrepreneurs can encourage one another to stick it out and stay the course and just provide that sense of community and support, hopefully entrepreneurs will be able to balance that burnout feeling that is bound to happen and can fight against that.
Yeah, it's a mindset shift. You have to reject the idea that you have to burn yourself out, that you have to work extreme hours to be successful, to have earned it.
Yeah.
I think it's really prioritizing it and rejecting the idea that you need to do that at all.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
you're not lazy. You're not dumb. You're taking a break. You're resetting, re-strategizing. So
and just,
I think that's how
something's been the status quo, or something's people have been operating in a way, does not mean it's been the right way.
Yeah, we can do better.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. With that being said, I did want to end this conversation and learn a little bit more about the break you took with your hubby this summer and how you are feeling now. Like, just if you feel motivated, inspired, rejuvenated.
Yeah, absolutely. When we took the, break from podcasting part of it, Brian and I went on a 3-week road trip. So we were visiting family, and we were in the Bay Area for a bit, visiting my aunts. Then we were in Seattle for a couple weeks, visiting his side. And it was great. Now, to be fair, like, being away for 3 weeks was a little rough on me, because I do like having, like, I like breaking the routine, but I also like coming back to the routine. And I definitely appreciated our home, my home, a lot more when we came back. But it was good. It was good to be in a new environment. It was good to be outside, because in Arizona it was so hot.
Yeah, yeah.
It was good to shake up the routine and focus on different things for a period of time. And even though I was gone and doing that, I think it was only like a few weeks later, I was already like texting you, like, I have ideas for this, and like writing down, like, you're still thinking about it. And it gave me that time to step back and think, okay, this is what we did. This is what other people are doing. This is what we could do. These are things we can test out and try. Like, this, like, now we have, because we decided to do seasons, we have this built-in phased approach. So it's okay. This is what we're going to try for season 2. We have some other ideas. Hey, let's maybe put that in phase 3 for season 3. So we don't feel like we have to do everything at once. We can build it out over time in a like sustainable way.
Yeah.
I definitely feel more motivated coming back and excited about all the ideas and stuff we talked about, and definitely a lot of nervousness.
Yeah.
We haven't done this in a while.
Oh,
I don't know.
goodness.
It's just, it's like we've done this 15 times. Like, I know we can do this again.
Yeah.
So,
it's funny because the risk you take sometimes when you break your routine, right? Like, you gotta acclimate again, adjust.
How was the break for you?
It was good. Right after we wrapped up season 1, Marcus took me on a surprise birthday trip. So that was really nice, because that was the first time that I'd really taken a trip since the whole panorama outside has taken place. And it was like something I didn't realize I needed. I wanted like a staycation for my birthday, a fake staycation. But he went all above and beyond and took me to Cancun, and it was super nice. And I got to actually relax. He put our admin staff on notice and said, hey, I'm taking Bridget here. need you guys to hold down the fort. They did. And it was really nice. And I was like, okay, I know we've been working remotely now for a year and we're trying to figure out this whole post-pandemic situation, but we need to get better about taking time away. Just because we're working from home does not mean we're relaxing and it's less work. It's sometimes even more work than going into an office and all of that. That helped me think about, okay, maybe we should do something in August and do a long weekend or a week or something just to break up what has been going on the last 15 months or so. So that was nice. I went back home to Denver for a couple of weeks to see my family. Love the weather. So that was always a welcome reprieve. But yeah, I'm feeling, again, even after the Denver trip, I felt rejuvenated. I did work in Denver, but it's different when you're with family and you're not all the way in. So I still had somewhat of a rest, if that makes sense.
Sure.
But yeah, I want to take some additional time off and just really hit the pedal before the holidays come up, because that'll be another opportunity to reset. I also think that for entrepreneurs, take advantage of like those holidays or those things that are coming up, because everything else is coming to a pause or a slowdown anyways. And that's usually a great time to take a break yourself. You don't have to keep working even through the holidays and that type of thing. But yeah, like you said, with season 2 of our podcast, like we're creating like these kind of visible lines or things we want to try to achieve within this season and the next season without feeling the pressure of trying to fit everything in.
Yeah, because if we're just doing this indefinitely, it's like,
when are we going to do this? When's the hard stop? When's the hard start? Exactly.
It's nice to have those built-in boundaries, essentially.
So, but I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
Awesome. We hope you guys have taken a bit away from this conversation. Hope we didn't have you feeling too burnt out on this convo, but it was very necessary, I think. I'm just coming with all the zingers today. I don't know what's going on.
I'm fired.
Oh my God, I'm so terrible. But anyway, Lauren, I'm so happy to be back here with you, and I'm looking forward to season 2 and all of the more crazy stories that we have yet to share. But I'm excited. We hope you've enjoyed listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, all the things. We're on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and go back and listen to season 1 if you haven't already.
Yeah, thanks, Bridget. It's been so great to be back, and thank you to everyone who's back with us.
Yeah.
So, have a good one.
See you soon.